My name is Maya, and I grew up knowing I was my parents' second choice. It wasn't something they ever said directly, but their actions made it crystal clear that my sister Jessica was their favorite. Jessica was 3 years older than me, and from as far back as I can remember, my parents treated us differently. When I was 8, I got straight A's on my report card and rushed home to show my parents. Mom glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey," before turning back to Jessica, who was showing off her B- in math. Dad took the entire family out for ice cream that night to celebrate Jessica's improvement. For my 10th birthday, I got a simple cake from the grocery store and a few small gifts. 2 weeks later, Jessica turned 13, and my parents threw her a massive party with catered food and hired a DJ. They even got her a brand new bike that cost more than all my birthday gifts combined. When I turned 13, I got clothes and school supplies. In middle school, Jessica joined the volleyball team. My parents never missed a game. They bought team shirts, made signs, and drove her to every practice. When I joined the debate team in 8th grade, they didn't come to a single competition, even when I made it to the state finals. At first, I did everything I could to earn their approval. I cleaned the house without being asked. I cooked dinner when Mom was running late. I kept my grades perfect. I joined every club and volunteered for every community service project I could find. Nothing worked. By the time I reached high school, I had a realization that changed everything. My parents simply didn't care what I did. It wasn't that I wasn't trying hard enough or wasn't accomplished enough. They just didn't care about me the way they cared about Jessica. So I stopped trying to please them. Instead, I focused on myself. From that point on, I studied for myself, not for them. I worked hard because I knew education was my ticket out of that house. Meanwhile, Jessica graduated high school and got accepted to a decent state college in Colorado. My parents were over the moon. They threw her a big graduation party, bought her a laptop, and promised to pay for her entire education. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Dad said, hugging Jessica at her party. I stood in the corner, sipping punch and wondering if they'd be as generous when my time came. I found out the answer during my junior year of high school. "Maya, we need to talk about college," Dad said one night at dinner. Jessica was home for winter break, showing off her new clothes and telling stories about her sorority sisters. "Okay," I said, putting down my fork, maybe they had been saving for me too. "Your mother and I want you to understand that we won't be able to pay for your tuition like we do for Jessica." Jessica smirked from across the table. "If you want to go to college, you'll need to take out student loans," Mom added, not looking up from her plate. "Why?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Dad sighed, "We just don't have the money for both of you. Jessica's program is very expensive, and we promised her we'd cover it." I nodded slowly, pushing my food around my plate. I didn't say anything else, but in that moment, I made a decision: I would get a full scholarship. I would go to college without their help, and I would succeed just despite them. That night, I made a plan. I would study harder than ever before. I would join more clubs, volunteer more hours, and build the perfect college application. I would prove to my parents, and to myself, that I didn't need them. The next day, I stayed after school to talk to my guidance counselor, Ms. Chen. "I need to get a full-ride scholarship," I told her. "What do I need to do?" Ms. Chen looked at me over her glasses. "That's a lofty goal, Maya. Full scholarships are very competitive, let's make a plan." For the next year and a half, I transformed myself into the perfect scholarship applicant. I raised my GPA to a perfect 4.0. I became president of the debate team and started a tutoring program for underprivileged kids. I volunteered at the local hospital every weekend. I wrote and rewrote my personal essays until they shone. By the time senior year ended, I had applied to 10 colleges. I waited anxiously for their responses, checking the mail before my parents got home each day. The first acceptance came from a small liberal arts college in New York. Partial scholarship. The second was from a state school in California. Partial scholarship. More letters arrived, 7 more partial scholarships in total. Then came the letter from Westlake University, a prestigious school in Massachusetts, full scholarship. 2 days later, another full scholarship offer arrived, then another. I had done it, 3 full scholarship offers out of 10 applications. The rest offered partial funding. I chose Westlake. It was the furthest from home and had the best program for my intended major in business and economics. When I told my parents at dinner, Dad nodded absently, "That's nice, honey." Mom looked up briefly, "Massachusetts? That's so far away, are you sure about that?" Jessica rolled her eyes, "It's not like Harvard or anything." Neither of them congratulated me. Neither of them seemed to grasp what I had accomplished. The only person who seemed genuinely happy for me was my grandmother, Dad's mother, who lived across town. "I'm so proud of you, Maya," she said when I visited her the next day to share my news. "You did this all on your own." Then she wrote me a check for $5,000. "For your expenses," she said, "every student needs a little spending money." I hugged her tight, tears in my eyes. At least someone in my family believed in me. 2 months later, I packed my bags and moved across the country to start my new life at Westlake University. I didn't look back. Life at Westlake University was everything I had hoped for. I settled into my dorm room, decorated my half with a few photos and posters, and met my roommate Aisha, who was studying pre-med. My parents rarely called. When they did, the conversations were brief and mostly about Jessica. How she'd landed an internship at a marketing firm. How she was making connections with important people. How proud they were of her. They never asked about my classes or my life. During my freshman year, I threw myself into my studies and campus activities. I joined the business club and the hiking group. I made friends who valued me for who I was, not who I wasn't. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. By my junior year, I had secured an internship at a financial consulting firm in Boston. I worked there every summer until graduation, building connections and experience. My boss, Marcia, became something of a mentor to me. She saw potential in me that my own parents never had. One night during my senior year, I got a rare call from my mother. "Jessica got a job at your father's friend Robert's company," she announced without even saying hello. "They're starting her at $60,000 a year, isn't that wonderful?" "That's great," I replied, not mentioning that I'd already received a job offer for $75,000 from the firm where I'd interned. The call ended like they always did, without her asking a single question about me. I graduated summa cum laude from Westlake. None of my family attended the ceremony. My grandmother had planned to come, but she'd fallen ill a week before and couldn't travel. She sent me a beautiful card with another check, this time for $2,000. After graduation, I moved back to Colorado but not to my hometown. I found a job at a financial firm in Denver and rented a small but nice apartment downtown. I lived frugally, cooking at home instead of eating out, buying clothes on sale, and putting as much of my salary into savings as possible. Every month, I watched my bank account grow, and with it, my sense of independence. I visited my parents' house for obligatory family dinners once a month or so. Jessica was usually there, showing off her latest expensive purchase or telling stories about her glamorous work events. Meanwhile, my parents beamed at her with pride. During one such dinner, Jessica noticed my watch, a simple Timex that had been a gift from Aisha when I graduated. "God, Maya, do you even care what you look like?" she asked, displaying her own wrist with a glittering Michael Kors timepiece. "You dress like you're still a broke college student." My mother laughed. "Not everyone has your fashion sense, Jess." "Or your salary," my father added with a proud smile. I simply shrugged and continued eating. What they saw as a lack of style was actually a deliberate choice. I was saving for something bigger. When I turned 25, everything changed. My grandmother passed away in her sleep. The loss hit me hard. She had been the only family member who had ever truly believed in me. After the funeral, we gathered at my parents' house for the reading of her will. My grandmother had been wealthier than I'd realized. She left $120,000 to my father, her only child. To Jessica and me, she left her house, a modest 3-bedroom home in a nice neighborhood. Jessica immediately spoke up after the lawyer finished. "We should sell the house and split the money. I don't want to live there, do you, Maya?" I shook my head. I had my apartment in Denver, and the house held too many memories. We listed the house the following week. It sold quickly, and after all fees were paid, Jessica and I each received $250,000. It was more money than I'd ever had at once, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. For the past 3 years, I'd been saving for a down payment on a condo. With this inheritance, I could now afford something much nicer in the heart of downtown Denver. I found a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a secure building with a gym and rooftop garden. The location was perfect, walking distance to work, surrounded by shops, restaurants, and parks. At the next family dinner, I mentioned my plans to buy the condo. Jessica, who was visiting from out of town, burst out laughing. "God, you're so boring and predictable," she said, rolling her eyes. "Buy property, save for retirement, blah blah blah. You're like an old lady already." "What are you doing with your money?" I asked, genuinely curious. She tossed her hair back dramatically. "I'm investing in myself. I'm going to travel, take some professional development courses, maybe get some cosmetic work done. You know, things that actually matter." My father nodded approvingly. "That's very smart, Jess, very forward-thinking." Yes, my mother agreed. "You've always been so creative with your decisions." They didn't say anything about my plans. Not a word of support or acknowledgement. But I was used to it by now, and their approval no longer mattered to me. 2 weeks later, I closed on the condo and became a homeowner at 25. I spent the next month furnishing it with carefully selected pieces that would last for years. The place wasn't fancy, but it was mine, bought with my money and my grandmother's generosity. I decided to host a housewarming party to celebrate this milestone. I invited my friends from Denver, some colleagues from work, a few cousins I was close with, and, out of obligation more than desire, my parents and Jessica. The day of the party, I was arranging the last of the food platters when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Maya, we won't be able to make it tonight. Jessica surprised us with tickets to Las Vegas for the weekend. Our flight leaves in 2 hours. I'm sure your little get-together will be fine without us." I wasn't even surprised. "Have a good trip," I said, and hung up. The party went ahead without them, and it was perfect. My friends and colleagues admired my new home. We ate good food, drank wine, and celebrated not just my new condo but the life I had built for myself, a life that had nothing to do with seeking my parents' approval. In the months after buying my condo, I settled into a comfortable routine. I got promoted at work, enjoyed my beautiful home, and started to feel truly content with my life. I kept tabs on Jessica through her Instagram, where she documented her extravagant lifestyle for her growing number of followers. She seemed to be living like a celebrity, showing off designer handbags, jewelry from Tiffany's, and a brand new Mercedes. There were photos of her at exclusive clubs, on weekend getaways to Aspen, and at fancy restaurants. Her followers gushed over every post with comments like "living the dream" and "goals." Meanwhile, I lived modestly. I saved a good portion of my salary, paid extra on my mortgage each month, and only splurged occasionally. With part of my inheritance money that wasn't used for the down payment, I took a 2-week vacation to Hawaii. I hiked volcanoes, swam in waterfalls, and took incredible photos of sunsets over the ocean. I didn't post any of them online. The trip was for me, not for show. Family gatherings became less frequent for me. I started declining invitations to the monthly dinners, only showing up for major holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. My interactions with my parents and Jessica were superficial and brief on these occasions. I'd listen to them brag about Jessica's latest accomplishments, nod politely, and leave as soon as I could. 2 years passed this way. I was 27, thriving in my career, nearly halfway through paying off my mortgage thanks to some aggressive payments, and genuinely happy with my life. Jessica was 30, still working at our dad's friend's company and still living the high life, at least according to social media. Then one ordinary Tuesday evening in April, my phone rang. It was Jessica. This was unusual, we almost never called each other directly. Maya, her voice sounded strained. You need to come to Mom and Dad's this Saturday for dinner. We need to have a serious talk with you, 6 o'clock. She hung up before I could ask anything else. When I pulled up to my parents' house that weekend, I noticed Jessica's Mercedes was parked in the driveway. When I entered the house, I was surprised to find boxes stacked in the living room and Jessica's jacket hanging in the entryway. It looked like she was living there. What's going on? I asked as I walked into the dining room where my parents and Jessica were already seated. Sit down, Maya, my father said, his tone serious. I took a seat across from Jessica, who was picking at her nail polish and avoiding eye contact. Jess has moved back home, my mother explained, placing a hand on Jessica's arm. She's going through a difficult time. Jessica looked up, her expression a mix of annoyance and embarrassment. I ran out of money, she admitted in a dissatisfied tone, and I got fired from the company. What? This was news to me. Why? They said it was for constant absenteeism and poor work performance, she said with an eye roll. But it's total slander, my boss had it out for me from day one. I nodded slowly, not sure what any of this had to do with me. Anyway, Jessica continued, exchanging glances with our parents, I've decided I'm not going to waste my time working for other people anymore. I'm going to start my own business. I have a large following on Instagram and other platforms. I can leverage that audience to build a lifestyle brand, but I need money to get started. All three of them looked at me expectantly. Wait, I said, the realization dawning on me, you called me here to ask for money? We're family, my mother said as if that explained everything. I don't have that kind of money, I replied honestly. And even if I did, starting a business is risky. I wouldn't invest in something without a solid business plan. Jessica's face hardened, I knew you'd be difficult about this. But here's the thing, Maya, you should sell your condo and give me my fair share. Your fair share? I was dumbfounded. How is any part of my condo your fair share? You bought it with Grandma's money, Jessica said. Money that was meant for both of us. I spent my half, and now I need more. It's only fair that you share. I looked at my parents, expecting them to say something about how ridiculous this request was. Instead, they were nodding along with Jessica. You're not serious, I said to all of them, that condo is mine. I bought it with my inheritance, money that Grandma left to me, just like she left the same amount to you, Jessica. What you did with your share is your business, not mine. You're being selfish, my father said, his tone sharp, your sister needs help. Yes, my mother added, we're family, family helps each other. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, let me get this straight. Jessica spent all her inheritance money on luxury items and vacations. Now she's broke and jobless. And your solution is for me to sell my home and give her half of my money? Exactly, Jessica said, as if I'd finally understood something obvious. No, I said firmly, absolutely not. I'm not selling my condo. I worked hard for it, I saved for it. And I'm still paying the mortgage on it. Maya, my mother's voice had that warning tone she used when I was a child, think about what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying no, I won't set myself on fire to keep Jessica warm, not anymore. Jessica's face twisted with anger, you've always been jealous of me. I stood up, my patience gone, I'm not doing this, I'm leaving. You're being incredibly selfish, my father called after me as I walked to the door. Family helps family, my mother repeated. We help people who need it, I replied without turning around. We don't enable people who refuse to take responsibility for their choices. I left the house with their angry voices following me. As I drove home, I felt strangely calm. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to all of them at once, and it felt good. I thought that was the end of it. I believed that after my firm refusal, my family would drop the subject and Jessica would find another way to fund her business idea. I was wrong. A week passed without any contact from them. I threw myself into work, trying to forget the whole unpleasant episode. Then, on Friday, I came home early from work after finishing a major project. As I put my key in the lock, I heard voices inside my condo. For a moment, I froze, thinking I had intruders. I pushed the door open cautiously and was shocked to see Jessica standing in my living room with a man in a suit. They were in the middle of a conversation. The location is excellent, and with some minor updates, we could list it for at least 20% more than the current market value, the man was saying. Perfect, Jessica replied, we'll want to move quickly. I stepped fully into the room, unable to believe what I was seeing. What the hell is going on at my place? Jessica turned, seemingly unsurprised by my appearance. Maya, this is Daniel Freeman, he's a realtor. Daniel, this is my sister Maya. The man looked confused. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Your sister contacted me about listing this property. There's no misunderstanding, I said, my voice hard. She has no right to sell this condo because it's not hers. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. The realtor quickly gathered his things and hurried out, mumbling apologies. When the door closed behind him, I turned to Jessica, who had sprawled herself across my couch as if she owned it. How did you get in here? I demanded. Mom and Dad have your spare key, remember? You gave it to them when you moved in. She examined her nails casually. They gave it to me. I remembered now. I'd given them the key for emergencies, never imagining they would abuse my trust like this. Get out, I said, my voice trembling with anger. Jessica made no move to leave. I'm not going anywhere, little sister, I like it here. I think I'll stay for a while, maybe until you come to your senses about selling this place. I pulled out my phone. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police and reporting you for trespassing. She laughed. You wouldn't dare call the cops on your own sister. I dialed 911 and put the phone on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report an intruder in my home who refuses to leave. Jessica's eyes widened. She grabbed her purse and stood up. You're going to regret this, she hissed as she pushed past me toward the door. This isn't over. After she left, I called the locksmith and changed my locks immediately. I sat in my living room for hours afterward, shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. How could my own family do this to me? That evening, my phone exploded with texts and calls from my parents. I let them go to voicemail, not ready to speak to them yet. When I finally listened to the messages, I was shocked by their viciousness. How dare you threaten to call the police on your sister, my mother had yelled into the phone. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By treating family like criminals? My father's message was even worse. You've always been selfish, Maya, but this is a new low. Your sister needs help, and you're too busy protecting your precious condo to care. If you don't agree to sell that place and split the money with Jessica, you're no daughter of mine. I turned off my phone after that. I needed space to think. The next day, I woke up to find my mother had posted on Facebook. Today, with a heavy heart, we are disowning our younger daughter, who has refused to help her sister during a difficult period and has chosen money over family. This is not a decision we've made lightly, but we cannot condone such selfishness. The post had dozens of comments, mostly from extended family members asking what had happened. My mother hadn't provided any details, just her vague accusation. I had never been one for social media drama, but this pushed me over the edge. I commented on her post. Since my mother isn't telling the whole story, let me clarify. My parents and sister tried to force me to sell my condo, which I bought with my inheritance and have been paying a mortgage on for 2 years, and give half the money to my sister because she spent all of her inheritance on luxury items and vacations and now needs more money. When I refused, my sister broke into my condo with a realtor to try to sell it without my permission. That's why I'm being disowned. The response was immediate. My cousin Ellie commented, I've seen Jessica's posts showing off her designer clothes, jewelry, and expensive trips for the past 2 years while Maya has lived modestly. Maya has every right to refuse this ridiculous demand. Another cousin added, Jessica has enough jewelry to sell and live comfortably for a year. Why should Maya have to sell her home? By the next morning, my mother had deleted the entire post. I haven't spoken to my parents or Jessica since then. They still try to contact me occasionally, usually with text messages complaining about money problems or asking to meet up. I delete them without responding. I changed my phone number and gave my new emergency key to my friend Aisha instead of any family member. I blocked my family on social media and asked mutual acquaintances not to share information about my life with them. Some people have told me I should forgive them, that family is family no matter what. But I don't see it that way anymore. Family isn't just blood relation. Family is people who support you, respect your boundaries, and want what's best for you, not just what's convenient for them. I'm 30 now. I paid off my mortgage completely. I received another promotion at work and started dating a kind, supportive man named David. My life is peaceful and fulfilling without the toxicity my family brought to it. I don't know if I'll ever reconcile with my parents or Jessica. Part of me misses having a family, despite everything. But a larger part of me knows I'm better off without people who only saw me as a resource to be used, never as a person to be loved.